Hey guys, welcome back to Mo's Game Table. Today we're going to take a look inside Ostkrieg, World War II Eastern Front. This is a game designed by Mitchell Ledford and Gregory M. Smith and published by Compass Games. If you've played Pacific Tide or are familiar with that one, this is a continuation of that same system, but now moved to the East Front. Pacific Tide is a really fun game, and Ostkrieg is a little bit simpler from what I understand. I've not played it yet. I just bought it, and it came in, and I wanted to share a look inside with you before I punch it and get it on the table. So let's take a look at the back of the box and see what this game is all about. Ostkrieg, World War II Eastern Front is a compact strategic level game covering the struggle in the Eastern Front during World War II. This game utilizes a unique and fast-paced card-driven combat build system, first introduced in Pacific Tide, revolving around ground and air operations. While extremely competitive as a two-player game, Ostkrieg can be enjoyed again and again in solitaire play format with its unique personality-driven bot system. As a bonus for solo players, Ostkrieg features a solitaire assistant, commonly known as a bot, which gives guidance to the player for either side during solitaire play. The assistant acts differently based on the personality it's been given: aggressive, defensive, or balanced. All game cards have a rating which the assistants will prioritize differently for play. Despite the strategic level of the game, there are operational and even tactical nuances, including axis-minor restrictions, as players must decide when and how to commit their ground and air forces. The card-based combat/build system is a different take on the normal event/operations points-driven systems. Separate card decks are provided for the Axis and Russian player. Each year, the players receive that year's cards for free, but misuse build points to repurchase older cards. This will cause the player a few agonizing moments, as he typically cannot afford to rebuy every card he needs or thinks he needs. Players must also decide which aspect of cards to use. Many have multiple but exclusive uses, such as do A or do B. And these uses sometimes give very different results based on the operational or strategic needs at the time. To help ensure a tense and dynamic game, the system forces players to make many choices and decisions throughout play. And the game comes with a 17 by 22 inch map, a counter sheet, 53 game cards, 2 player aid cards, a rulebook, and 16 six-sided dice. It is rated complexity 4 out of 10. Time scale is single year turns with alternating multiple card plays. It is an area map. Unit scale is army level, infantry, armor, air groups, and partisans. Is 1 or 2 players, best with 2. And suitability for solitaire is 8 out of 10. The solitaire bot system, I'd say that makes it a 10 if it's got a solitaire bot system. Average time to play is 3 to 5 hours. And there is an example of the map, the cards, and the counters on the back of the box. So let's take a look inside and see what you get. All right, we've got our deck of cards. A whole boatload of D6s, our Compass Games catalog, rulebook, counter sheet, player aid cards, and our map. So let's set up the map and take a closer look at the game. And here's a look at the map that comes with the game. It is not just Russia, but you will be starting out in Germany all the way through the Middle East into the Soviet Union, and it is point-to-point movement. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. You have your solitaire personality box here where you'll keep track of the solitaire personality that you're using at the time, and then you have a game turn track for 1941 through to 1945, and then the production track for the East Front there, and you have your terrain legend at the bottom right. Now we'll take a look at the player aids that come with the game. We have national restrictions, partisan rules, and a sequence of play all broken down for you on the front. And on the back gives you the number of dice that you'll be using based on different combat aspects in the game, your combat results, and then your loss modifiers here at the bottom. Now we have the solitaire play aid that will walk you through all the steps in running your solitaire personality, front and back with different triggers and a solitaire handicap. Now we'll take a look at the counter sheet. We have German units on the left and the Soviet units on the right. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward, just gives you the combat value of each of the units, and you can make change as you need throughout the game. These are not like set into any one location on the map. Now take a look at a couple of cards in the game. This is a German card here. It says Major Blitz. Everything must be played in sequence. It says must be the first card played by the Axis in the Barbarossa scenario. Activate 3 areas for movement, attack 4 areas. You may play another non-blitz card or pass card play to your opponent. And this is from 1941, and it is a cost of 6, and the A will tell you what the solo bot is going to be. In this case, it would be aggressive. And another German card just to show you that there is a D here. You're going to have A, B, or D at the bottom of the cards for aggressive, balanced, or defensive. And lastly, one of the Soviet cards from 1941. Activate 2 areas for movement, attack 3 areas. For each of these attacks, Axis units must retreat if at least 1 Soviet unit survives. Axis air units may not be used to support these combats. The Soviet player must pass until the end of the year after playing this card. So obviously you want to save this for late in your hand of cards that you're playing, because if you do, otherwise you're going to be wasting your entire hand. Cost 3, 1941, and again, an aggressive for the solo bot when used in solo play. Now we'll take a look at the rules. This is a 23-page rulebook. On the inside front cover, we have the table of contents, description, victory conditions, game components, a listing of the counters and what they are, an explanation of your cards, and then the game setup. We start off with the scenario for Barbarossa and the Soviet and German setup for that, and then as well for Operation Uranus. Then we get into the bidding and gameplay. Bidding is where you're going to bid to start off the game. If you want to see who goes first, you're going to bid your build points. How many build points are you willing to give up for that turn to be able to go first? That's one of those risk versus reward things that you really have to weigh, and it takes, I think, a few games till you get an idea as to how much you're willing to risk and how much it's going to hurt you, as well as what your opponent's going to do. Gameplay, we start off with the year start. Card play is explained to you here. Area control, supply, how to trace your supply, air resupply, movement, supply and movement, infantry, armor movement, air rebasing, partisans, movement sequences here. Then we get into the different types of attack. And we have land attacks, and we have a couple of different tables that you'll be using and how you determine the damage. Combat example, all in text for you to follow. Placing your units, year end, victory check, determine country control, and then year change, determine production, and then purchasing your cards to move on to the next step. Then on page 12, we have the play example, which is all illustrated examples here, so you can understand the different aspects of the game that the rules just taught you. And that goes on for several pages, from page 12 to page 19. Then we get into the Solitaire play aid, explains how to use that. And as we said before with the cards, A, B, or D at the bottom of the cards for aggressive, balanced, or defensive, and that will determine the personality of your bot for the year. Then we get into the designer's notes on page 20. Those carry over to page 22. And then we have some suggested reading, game credits, and then the index on the back of the rulebook. And that is a look at everything you get inside of Ostkrieg, World War II East Front. This is a game designed by Mitchell Ledford and Gregory M. Smith and published by Compass Games. Like I said before, if you have played Pacific Tide, you're going to be familiar with the system. It has been moved to the Eastern Front now, and it's supposed to be a little bit simpler, not as involved as Pacific Tide. Not that Pacific Tide was difficult, it's just that this is a little more streamlined, a little faster, and a little easier, so it'll be interesting to see how that works. This Pacific Tide is a really fun game. Ostkrieg, I think if it's as fun as Pacific Tide, is going to be even more fun for me because I love the Eastern Front. So definitely worth checking out if you're an East Front fan. This is a good system, and I hope that there are many games in this line because, again, this is something you can jam out in about 2-3 hours, and it's not super difficult. And the best part about it is it comes with a bot that's actually really fun and really challenging, and surprisingly so, without being very complex to use. So I think this game has a long life ahead of it, and the series has a long life ahead of it. Well, I hope that helps you guys out if you're curious about this one. If you have any comments or questions, post them down below. Thanks for tuning in, guys. See you next time.